Hey, how you doing there in YouTube land today? I'm going to be finishing up removing the black lacquer finish on my Strat project. So I've done about half of it. You can see the bare wood coming through already on the bottom, and I've already sanded that part a little bit just to see how it was going to come out. And this is going to work. This method is going to work. I'm so excited to finish this up. You got a couple layers to work through. You have on top of your wood finish, you have a layer of white primer, and then your color coat and your clear coat. So, yeah, you can see I got some scratching there, just some surface scratching, but that's going to sand off pretty easy. I got a better tool this time, so I'm just using a $10 heat gun from Harbor Freight. I even had a coupon. I got this thing for $10. I've used it for several projects. It's wonderful. High and low switch. Works fine. I got myself a better scraping tool. I went to the hardware store and got a good paint scraper. $8. Nice fresh paint scraper. You want something with a good beveled, sharp edge on it because you do need to dig through, you need to scrape on top of the wood, and you're scraping a couple layers of stuff off. So it's got a nice sharp edge on there, nice beveled edge, so I can get in there. And this worked like a charm. And this was a very simple process. I found it just better for my needs rather than using a chemical stripper. Or I know you can sand this down, but it's the winter time, so I'm not going to be sanding outside, and like sanding this stuff makes a big mess. There's a lot of particulate. This is lacquer, cellulose lacquer. You don't want to be inhaling that particulate either. Now, I assume by heating up the lacquer, there could be fumes. So, I think I did wear a mask at some point as well. Those COVID masks, those KN95 COVID masks are still coming in handy. So look how good this is working, right? All you're doing is applying some heat to the area, and you get a good edge to start. And with a nice fresh scraper, this stuff is coming right off. Now this video is sped up about 100%, 200% in some parts. So just put on some tunes and take your time. You don't want to, the edges come off real easy. It's a good place to start, but you do want to be careful not to dig into your wood. I did end up, if you catch a bad angle or you press too deeply, you could gouge your wood. What you're seeing here is just really that the white primer coat that was scratching up, and then that's just going to get sanded down. So I'm already on to the back side here. You kind of want to look at your guitar as three places: front, back, sides. And if you just take your time and work with that in mind, this is going to be real easy for you. I have never done this before. This is the first time I'm doing it, and everything I've learned from watching YouTube. I watch other YouTubers do it, and I kind of, get ideas from a number of different people, a number of different sources, and put it together and, make it my own, see what works for me. So this worked for me. You can see here what a mess this lacquer is making as I strip it off, but it's coming off real easy. It was just, a little bit of heat and a good scraper, and all that surface scratching is going to sand off you'll see momentarily once I take a power sander to this thing. But it makes a big mess. You get stuff everywhere. That back is almost done. The hardest places and the places that you want to be most careful, are curves and bevels. Once I get to the sides, or right here on these strats, you have a big bevel on the back, and then one on the front, and I ended up scraping the one on the front a little bit, but I think it's going to sand off and be okay. I don't know what happened to my lighting there. Sun must have went behind a cloud. So I mean, I'm just set up in my garage. I got a shop vac handy to suck up all that garbage as I'm working. There's just the heat gun blows it all over the place as you strip it off, and you know, there's a lot of paint to get rid of here. So I kind of kept the space clean as I'm working, but this is great. There we go. Little shop vac action for you. Be careful too as you're working. That heat gun really heats things up. That wood gets hot. The surfaces that you're working with get really hot to the touch. The tip of your scraping device is going to get hot, so just be very careful not to touch stuff with your bare hands. I'm just using sandbags here to hold down the weight down the guitar, because you do need to apply a little bit of pressure and force. So that's just what I had hanging around, those are sandbags used for like lighting instruments and like film equipment and lighting equipment. So I just happened to have that stuff around, so I was able to, I just weighted down the guitar, and so it wouldn't move. I've seen some people like clamp it down, depending on what your space is, but it's going to be a real pain in the butt if like every time you push on it with the scraper, the guitar starts moving around. So, and look at that, like we're done the back already. And the rest of what that stuff on the top there is going to just sand down. Like it looks like I'm scraping the wood, but I'm not. I did nick it in a few spots. Oh, I'm back to the front. I did nick it in a few spots, so I'll either have to sand those down or maybe use some wood filler later. Edges collect the least amount of paint, so it's a good place to start. On an edge, and you're just kind of heating and working, heating and scraping. It's so satisfying when you get them long ones. And all right, work those edges. And I'm almost on the front here. Zoop, 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 zoop. Look at that. So easy. This is wonderful. Wonderful. I wasn't, in a previous video, I wasn't using the proper scraper. So I had to go out and buy a real the proper scraper, and this is much better. So it's fun and satisfying, I'll tell you that. Find a guitar that you just can't stand anymore, or an old crappy guitar that you want to fix up. That's what I've done here. This was just an old guitar I had hanging around that I finally realized that the neck was just the crappiest neck ever made. And you know how projects go. Once you get started, it turns into something else. So I plan on repainting this guitar in a new fresh color, and really learned a lot. So I'm just using my sandbags here again to hold it in place and work those sides, and those sides are coming off real easy. Again, like, you want to be careful, not to dig in there or gouge something with that scraper. Right, so those sides came off really easy. Didn't take too much time at all. It gets a little tricky around the corners, and you just want to follow your contours. I think I did actually, like in the middle there. Sometimes it's hard to follow the contours. You might gouge it a little bit, but you'll be able to cover that stuff up when you sand it and fill it in later. So some spots are harder to get to than others. I was having a little trouble here. Just got to work out a little bit and it'll go. Find the right angle to make yourself comfortable. I think at one point I stood up on a box to get myself higher, elevated, and then, you know, just get the right angle to work with, and it should be real easy. Look how awesome that's looking. And a little shop vac action, clean up that workspace, and here we are. Just finish this up on the other side. All right, so here we're done. I'm going to leave that inside cavity black because it's not going to matter. And the wood is so junky in there, like it would just be a pain in the ass to scrape that out, and there's really no point. So, all right, so here we're going to sand this down. I'm starting with some P120. I'm going to start with the 120 and then move to a 220, and this thing comes out super smooth. Once I start prep paint, I'm going to go to 320 and then 400. So I wore a respirator during this process. It kicks up a lot of particulate. So you can see all that's white primer coat kind of coming off. And you're going to want to, I kept a rag nearby so that I can kind of wipe the surface down as I'm working just to see what I'm doing. But this worked really well. Very satisfying. So this is 120 grit right here. And again, I've never done this before, so I was very nervous, like putting a power sander to this guitar. Like if I didn't want to mess it up, but it turned out amazing. The little power sander did an amazing job, and you know, I'm just going to be painting over this. I don't think I'm going to stain this guitar because the wood. This guitar looked like it was like 6 pieces of wood glued together. The grain's probably not that attractive, but we'll see. So again, like, take your time, you know, keep the sander moving. I'm using, like, sometimes it's long strokes. Sometimes I use a circular motion to get in somewhere, but, you know, don't put too much pressure down in one place at one time. Like, keep it moving, you know, kind of like you're ironing, right? I'm using circular motions, sweeping motions back and forth with the grain, and look at that already. Look how good that's looking. Use your hand. You know, you can obviously do a visual test, but use your hand to feel rough spots and feel where you want to sand. You know, that's the best thing. You know, it's like, even like, close your eyes and feel the guitar with your hand, and you'll feel those rough spots. This guitar on the back, it looked like there was some glue filler or wood filler coming through, so that's not going to look good to be stained anyway. There was some really, like, yucky spots. That there was even some kind of filler. Maybe it was the wood glue or something, but like the heat gun was even like burning it, like bubbling it up, melting it. So I'm sanding that down smooth. And once I put my own coat of primer, white primer on top with this, like, none of this is going to matter. So enjoy the natural look while you can, and wipe it clean every once in a while to see where you are. And the 120 did a great job of removing that initial top coat of whatever primer coat was left on there, sanding sealer, whatever they used on this. So I'm going to get the majority off with that, and then with the 220 I'm going to go over this and, like, smooth it out, and it's going to come out amazing. I was actually quite impressed. Again, I've never done this before, and everything I've learned has been watching other YouTubers. So if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free. You know, I'm looking to learn more about this process. I have a handful of other videos on this channel, I got 2 guitar projects I'm working on. One is I'm rebuilding this Strat right here with the camise neck, and I'm gonna wire my own pickup and pick guard and learn how to do all that. And then I have a Leo James Flying V kit that I'm going to be finishing as well, putting a professional, learning how to put a professional lacquer finish on that, and that's going to be awesome too. So feel free, subscribe to my channel. It don't cost nothing. I'd appreciate, hey, let's build a community. I'd appreciate the support each other. This is my first time doing all this stuff, and luckily I got some free time on my hands to do it. I can't wait to retire. I got so many hobbies I want to do when I retire. So this hopefully won't be the first or last guitar I'm going to rebuild. I keep finding myself scouring Facebook Marketplace for like old guitars to purchase. Like as soon as I see a good deal on someone's old guitar that they don't want, man, I'm going to snatch that up without my wife knowing. I'm going to have like a stash of guitars somewhere. So be careful with the sides and the edges, right? Eventually I'm going to do a lot of this by hand, these small corners where the sander can't get to. And I think a couple of those corners I actually burned in too much with the sander, but it's really not going to matter. But it did a really good job on them. But again, keep the sander moving, especially on the corners and sides and points, on rounded edges, like on the top. I don't know what you call those rounded on the top there, but I think I end up doing those by hand. You can actually see on the left side there, that one, I don't know what you call it. I kind of burned it in a little bit with the sander, but hopefully once I get the clear coat on, it's not going to matter. Yeah, I was doing a little bit of that, a little circular around the edge there, but yeah, don't be afraid. You're not going to hurt anything. So here I think that's the 220 on there now, I believe I started with, and just keep smoothing it out. Put some gloves on at this point, because again, like this makes a mess, and this is also like you're sanding off like toxic chemicals here. So protect yourself. I'm wearing a respirator. I got gloves on now because I noticed how like nasty my hands were getting from all this stuff. So, my shirt's filthy dirty. So I'm getting in there with my hands in those corners. It wasn't too hard. I had to do a lot of work in those spots. I'm sorry you can't see that now. So around the edges, definitely hand sanded around the edges because I want more control, and I don't want to with the sander, mess up the contour of something. So you have a little more control with the hand sanding in some of these spots. And I just kind of like switched back and forth between 120 and 220, depending on what I wanted to do. And so that's pretty much done. It's coming out real nice. Again, using my hands, my fingers, just to feel rough spots and seeing what areas I need to work on. There's that melted glue. I do need to fix that strap hole. Was all I need to fill that hole. The front side feels great. You can still see like where I scratched the front, but it's smooth now, right? I do need to work on these right there, those curves. So I got to get in there with the hand sandpaper and do that. And I just folded up a piece of sandpaper from the sander to use. I didn't buy anything special. I'm just using what I got. But I'm really happy with the way this has come out. So a little more work in there. It takes a little bit of time to get in there and get that stuff smooth. You know, like a lot of the spots that don't look smooth, they are. So, you know, sand a little bit, wipe it down, feel it with your hand. You know, do a little more. Obviously, these spots are going to take a little longer to do. So I'm at a point now, I gotta go in for dinner, but I think, you know, this is where I want it to be. It's so smooth. It's so smooth, it feels awesome. The front side actually looks pretty cool too. So I did a final wipe down with mineral spirits. Mineral spirits is not going to swell the wood. Don't just use water. The water will get in there and swell the wood, which I guess if you let it dry properly, that's fine, but mineral spirits will not do that and gives you a nice clean finish. It also smells great too. All right, hey, so I guess that looks like it's it for now. Thanks for watching. Keep on rocking, everyone. I'll catch you on the next one, and go ahead, subscribe, check me out. I might have some really cool content coming our way soon. Later.